You just walked through the scanner. Clean. No alarms. Grabbed your bag off the belt, slipped your shoes back on, and started heading toward your gate. Then you hear it. "Excuse me, can you step over here for a moment?" You turn around. A TSA officer is pointing at you. Not the person behind you. You. Your bag already passed. Your body already cleared. You're 10 feet past the checkpoint. But now you're being called back and you have no idea why. Most people think TSA screening ends when you collect your belongings and walk away from the X-ray machine. It doesn't. There's an entire secondary layer of evaluation that happens after the initial checkpoint, and it's designed to catch things the scanners and metal detectors can't. Some of these checks are automated, some are visual, and some are triggered by data that has nothing to do with what you're carrying. The system has been restructured to assess risk in stages, and the final stage doesn't happen until after you think you're done. There are 4 major reasons TSA is stopping people after they've already cleared security in 2026. None of them are obvious. Most passengers never see them coming, and one of them is so subtle that it catches even experienced travelers who've flown hundreds of times without issue. Keep watching and you'll understand exactly what's happening behind the scenes and how to make sure it doesn't happen to you. Let's talk about the first one, and it's probably the most unsettling because it feels like you're being watched, which you are. Roving behavioral detection officers. These aren't the agents standing at the podium checking IDs. These are plainclothes personnel positioned throughout the terminal, including in post-security areas, trained to observe passengers for signs of stress, evasion, or suspicious movement. They're not looking at your bags. They're looking at you, how you walk, where you look, how long you pause, whether you're sweating, whether you're checking over your shoulder. If they see something they don't like, they call it in, and you get intercepted before you reach your gate. This program has existed in some form for years, but it's been massively expanded. There are more officers, they have updated criteria, and they're empowered to stop you even if you've done nothing technically wrong. The problem is that a lot of the behaviors they're trained to flag are also symptoms of anxiety, jet lag, confusion, or just being in a rush. If you're a nervous flyer, if you're late for a connection, or if you're simply trying to find your gate in an unfamiliar terminal, you might be exhibiting the exact body language they've been told to watch for. It's profiling, but it's behavioral profiling, which makes it harder to challenge or even recognize when it's happening. There's not much you can do to avoid being observed. You can't control where the officers are stationed, but you can control how you move. Walk like you know where you're going, even if you don't. Don't linger in weird spots. Don't keep turning around. Don't stand near restricted areas or stare at security infrastructure. Act like a seasoned traveler, even if it's your first flight. Confidence reads as low risk. Hesitation reads as something else. Here's the second reason, and this one's technical. It has to do with how the screening machines communicate with each other. Delayed scanner alerts. Sometimes the advanced imaging scanner or the X-ray machine detects something it's not sure about, but instead of stopping you immediately, it sends a flag to a downstream officer for visual confirmation. You walk away thinking you're clear because no alarm went off, but behind you an agent is reviewing your scan on a monitor. If they see an anomaly, maybe an odd shadow on your body, maybe an unclear area in your bag, they'll radio ahead and have you stopped after the fact. This happens more often than people realize. The machines are fast, but the review process isn't always instant. Sometimes there's a 5 or 10-second lag between when you pass through and when a human actually examines the image. By the time they decide they want a closer look, you're already repacking your stuff or walking away, so they send someone after you. From your perspective, it feels random. From their perspective, they're following up on a flagged scan. You weren't cleared. You were provisionally cleared, pending review, and the review just came back uncertain. If this happens to you, don't panic. It doesn't mean they found something illegal. It usually means the image wasn't clean enough for them to rule you out automatically. Stay calm, cooperate, and it'll be over in a couple of minutes. But know that this is why some people get stopped even when they're certain they didn't trigger anything. The trigger happened. It just happened quietly, on a screen you never saw.
Now here's one that's catching a specific type of traveler more than others, and it's tied to something you probably never thought twice about: mismatched boarding pass data. When you go through the document check at the start of security, the agent scans your boarding pass and your ID. That scan uploads your information into the system, including your name, your flight number, your destination, and your boarding time. But if any of that data doesn't align with what TSA's back-end system expects, maybe your boarding pass was reprinted, maybe your flight was changed, maybe there's a name discrepancy between your ticket and your license, you get tagged for a follow-up check after you pass through the physical screening. You won't know there's a problem until someone stops you later, and when they do, they're not going to search your bag. They're going to ask for your documents again. They're going to verify your identity. They might ask you questions about your flight. It's not about what you're carrying. It's about whether the system trusts that you are who you say you are and that you're supposed to be on that plane. This is happening more as airlines shift to digital boarding passes and automatic rebooking systems. Every time your ticket gets updated, there's a chance the TSA database doesn't sync perfectly, and when it doesn't, you get pulled. The easiest way to avoid this is to double-check your boarding pass before you get to the airport. Make sure your name matches your ID exactly, not a nickname, not a shortened version. If your flight was changed or rebooked, print a fresh boarding pass or reload it on your app. Don't use a screenshot from 2 days ago. The cleaner your documentation, the less likely the system finds a mismatch. It's tedious, but it keeps you out of a secondary screening room trying to explain why your middle initial is missing. And here's the one that almost no one anticipates, because it doesn't happen at security, it happens after you've left it. Post-checkpoint bag swabs. TSA has started conducting random explosive trace detection tests in gate areas, not just at the main checkpoint. Officers will approach passengers near their gates, ask to swab their carry-on or personal item, and run it through a chemical analyzer. If the swab comes back with any trace of flagged compounds, you're taken back into a screening area for a full bag dump and interview. Most of the time, the traces are harmless. Residue from fertilizer, fireworks, certain medications, even some lotions or cleaning products. But the machine doesn't care. It just reports what it detects. This is disorienting because you've already been through security. Your bag already passed the X-ray. Now you're being tested again, and it feels like you're being singled out. You're not. It's part of a randomized secondary layer meant to catch items that might have been missed or introduced after the initial screening. But because it happens in the terminal, often right before boarding, it's more visible and more stressful. Other passengers see it. It feels like an accusation. And if the test comes back positive, even for a false positive, you're missing your flight while they sort it out. There's no way to guarantee you won't get selected for a swab test, but you can reduce the chances of a false positive by being mindful of what you've handled recently. If you've been gardening, working with tools, cleaning with strong chemicals, or using certain skincare products, wash your hands thoroughly before you pack and before you fly. Don't pack items in bags you've used for hardware, automotive supplies, or hobbies involving powders or solvents. The swabs are sensitive. They pick up microscopic residue, and once they do, you're stuck explaining why your backpack tested positive for nitrates because you used it to haul camping gear last month. So here's the bottom line. Passing through the checkpoint doesn't mean you're done being screened. The system now operates in layers, and some of those layers activate after you've collected your things and started walking away. It's a shift that most travelers haven't adjusted to yet, and that's why people keep getting stopped in areas they thought were safe. But now you're different. You understand the post-checkpoint triggers. You know why they exist and how they work, and you know how to move through the system without lighting up the back-end alerts most people don't even know are there. So let me ask you this. What's the weirdest place you've ever been stopped by TSA? Gate area? Jetway? Somewhere else entirely? Tell me in the comments. And if this breakdown just made your next trip a little less stressful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and safe travels!